Civil rights activists. Rosa Parks. 1. Overview. For many years, white and black Americans were kept separated or segregated in public places. In 1955, civil rights worker Rosa Parks refused to surrender her seat to a white passenger on a Montgomery, Alabama bus. Her actions spurred African Americans to boycott city buses and refuse to ride them. It started a nationwide effort to end segregation of public buildings and buses. 2. Early life and education. Born in 1913, Rosa grew up in her grandparents' farm in Pine Level, Alabama. They were once slaves and believed strongly in equal rights. At one point, the Ku Klux Klan, a racist group, marched down their street. Her grandfather stood outside to watch. 3. Ordered to the back of the bus. Riding the Montgomery buses was unpleasant for African Americans. White passengers rode at the front of the bus, while blacks had to sit in the back. When the front seats filled up, the bus driver could make black passengers give up their seats. On December 1, 1955, after a long day's work, Rosa Parks got on the bus home. The driver noticed several white passengers standing in the aisle. He asked 4 black passengers to give up their seats. 3 agreed, but Parks refused, so the driver called the police. Later, Parks recalled that she was not physically tired, but she was tired of giving in. The police arrested Rosa and took her to jail. Later that night, she was released until her trial. Number 5. The NAACP planned a boycott of Montgomery's buses for the day of Rosa's trial. People were encouraged to stay home, take a cab, or walk to work. Later that day, a judge said Rosa Parks had broken the law. She was charged a fine. Number 6. African Americans decided to continue the boycott. They chose Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. as their leader. Montgomery's buses remained mostly empty for 381 days. People carpooled, rode in taxis, or walked, even long distances. The buses sat idle, and the bus company lost money. People in favor of segregation fought back. Martin Luther King Jr.'s and E.D. Nixon's homes were bombed. Number 7. In 1954, the Supreme Court decided segregation had no place in public schools. Parks' lawyer tried to make the same case for public buses. In June 1956, the local district court declared segregation laws unconstitutional. On November 13, 1956, the U.S. Supreme Court agreed, meaning bus segregation was illegal. The Montgomery bus boycott was one of the most successful movements against segregation in history. 8. Later life. Parks was now a symbol of civil rights, but she and her husband lost their jobs. They moved to Detroit, Michigan. There, Parks worked in the office of Congressman John Conyers. 9. Rosa Parks received many honors during her lifetime, including the Martin Luther King Jr. Award, the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and the Congressional Gold Medal. Time magazine called her one of the 20 most influential people of the 20th century. 10. On October 24, 2005, at the age of 92, Rosa Parks died in Detroit. Her body lay in state in Washington, D.C. Thousands of people walked past to pay their respects. 11. In 2013, President Barack Obama unveiled a statue of Rosa Parks in the Capitol building. In a single moment, with the simplest of gestures, she helped change America and change the world, he said. Number 1. Part A. Which of these conclusions about the author's opinion about the Montgomery bus boycott is supported by the passage? A. The author believes that the boycott was ineffective in supporting the movement against segregation. B. The author believes that riding the Montgomery bus was unpleasant for African Americans. C. The author believes that the boycott was an important tool to fight against segregation. D. The author believes that the boycott was a violent strategy to protest. 2. Part B. Which sentence from the passage best supports the conclusion drawn in Part A? A. African Americans decided to continue the boycott. B. Martin Luther King Jr.'s and E.D. Nixon's homes were bombed. C. On November 13, 1956, the U.S. Supreme Court agreed, meaning bus segregation was illegal. D. The Montgomery bus boycott was one of the most successful movements against segregation in history. Number 3. Rosa Parks believed strongly in equality for all people. Which sentences from the passage best support this conclusion? Select 2 answers. A. They were once slaves and believed strongly in equal rights. B. At one point, the Ku Klux Klan, a racist group, marched down their street. C. But Parks refused, so the driver called the police. D. Later, Parks recalled that she was not physically tired, but she was tired of giving in. E. Rosa Parks received many honors during her lifetime, including the Martin Luther King Jr. Award, the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and the Congressional Gold Medal.